so much.
Thank you. Salamat, salamat. Muchas gracias.
All right. Well, last week we had the most exciting session yet when we went through the structural diagram together, and for Psalm 99. So I thought I would start our time by quickly reviewing the diagram, and then we're almost into the final steps for the exegetical portion of our study. So that's good. We're taking a little longer than I had thought, but that's okay. So hopefully you guys can continue on. I know this is the 9th session. I had thought it'd be about 10 or 11 sessions to finish this, but it's going to take a little longer. So hopefully you're able to continue along with us. But what I'm going to do is, instead of us reading through the passage, I'm just going to read through the diagram, since it is the passage, and then just remind a few thoughts there before we go on to textual observation. So here is our diagram of Psalm 99. Again, this is the New American Standard Version. So I'll just read each verse, then make a couple comments, and then we'll just go through it that way to start. Okay? So the psalm begins, "The Lord reigns, let the peoples tremble. He's enthroned above the cherubim, let the earth shake." And if you remember, and it's highlighted here in our diagram, we understood the connection of this second phrase, "let the peoples tremble," as a result of the Lord reigning. That's why we put in the word "therefore." Even though it's not in the original text, the idea is implied. And then the same in the next line, "He's enthroned above the cherubim." So above the cherubim answers the question where he is enthroned. And then again, this implied response, "let the earth shake." Verse 2, "The Lord is great in Zion, and he is exalted above all the peoples." And then this implied response, "Therefore, let them praise your great and awesome name. Holy is he." And again, notice the highlighted portions are those implied ideas. As I mentioned to you last week, when we're diagramming poetry, there are going to be many examples or many situations where the conjunctions are not written in the text, but they're implied to be there. Again, remember, poetry, one of the 3 elements is terseness. That is making it short, brief, impactful statements. And so to do that, often the poet will leave out some of these connecting words, particularly these conjunctions, therefore, for, and. And so as we went through the diagram together and thought about how these verses are connected, we could anticipate the fact that these conjunctions, especially the therefore and the for here in verse 3, are implied by the author to be there. Does anyone remember what poetic device that's called, where you have a word or a phrase that's been omitted, taken out, but is implied to be there? Anyone remember what that's called?
Ellipsis.
Very good. Think of an eclipse where the sun is blocked by the moon. An ellipse or ellipsis is the idea of a word being blocked out, but we know it's there. Okay? And so ellipsis is very common in Hebrew poetry. Again, they do this because it flows better, it sounds better, it's more artistic by shortening these verses. Okay, so let them praise your great and awesome name. Holy is he. That's the first stanza. The second stanza, verses 4 and 5. The strength of the king loves justice. You have established equity. You have executed justice and righteousness in Jacob. And again, the implied therefore. The expected response, I should have put that in here. The result, the expected response. Exalt the Lord our God and worship at his footstool. Why should we do that? Because holy is he. Again, that implied idea. All right. And we mentioned last time also that we would expect this phrase, holy is he, modifying both verbs, exalt and worship. And then we have the third stanza, where there's several statements that the author makes. Moses and Aaron were among his priests, and Samuel was among those who called on his name. They called upon the Lord, and he answered them. He spoke to them in the pillar of cloud. They kept his testimonies and the statute that he gave him. O Lord our God, you answered them. You were a forgiving God to them, and yet an avenger of their evil deeds. And then verse 9, the implied response, therefore exalt the Lord our God and worship at his footstool. For holy is the Lord our God. Now notice something here, men. In this last verse, the author does include that word for. If you remember, in verse 5, in the parallel refrain, the word for, holy is he, the word for was not there. We implied that it was there. In verse 9, we can see that our assumption was correct, because in verse 9, he does put it there. Okay? So this is an example which proves this, that when we assume these connector words have been taken out but are still there as far as the idea, comparing verse 5 and verse 9 prove that point, because in verse 9 he does include the word for, telling us that verse 5, for holy is he, is we should assume or expect or understand it to be there. Okay, so that was our structural diagram that we spent time on last week. Now, after doing the diagram, the next step in the exegetical process as a poetic text is to do the textual observation. Okay? Because now that we've done the structural diagram, we've broken up all the phrases, we've identified how they modify and what they modify, and we've put the diagram in to show that. The next step is then to take a look at this diagram and make some observations, particularly of the grammar, all right? Now, I know all of us love grammar. It's one of our favorite subjects, right? Silence.
Right.
I'll be honest with you, man. I hated grammar. I avoided it. That's why I went into engineering.
Me too.
Now, engineering, who cares about grammar? But then the Lord called me into ministry, and now I have to study grammar.
And then the Lord said, I care about grammar.
Exactly. There you go. Preach it, brother. Amen. He does. And the reason he does is because God uses language to communicate, right? We all use language to communicate with each other. And in that language, there are rules of grammar that we follow so that we can understand one another. So, you know, as unfortunate as it is, we do need to understand grammar in order to be able to understand what has been written by the Spirit through the human author. All right, and so the structural diagram is one way that we do that, and then the textual observations that we make of that diagram is the second way that we do that. And so let's just briefly review these textual observations. And in Module 1, we covered an extensive list when we were teaching you how to do them for epistles. For the poetic genre, that list is much smaller because actually many of the same kinds of observations we've already been making within the previous steps. Like in the poetic analysis, when we do parallelism,
Yes,
we're identifying a number of things there. When we do the structural diagram, we're identifying a number of observations already. So the list is smaller, as you're going to see in a minute, all right? Now, when we talk about textual observations, again, we're looking at some of the aspects of grammar. So we're going to, one, consider verbs, all right? Who can tell me what a verb is? Who can describe to me a verb? What does a verb do?
Action
word.
Action, right? It tells us it tells us of an action that the subject is doing or a state that the subject is in. A state that the subject is in. For example, Will clapped His hands. Okay? What's the verb here in this sentence?
Clap. Clap.
Clapped, right? And this is an action and the subject will is doing. So we might say the subject here is will. The verb is clapped. And hands is the object. That is the object is what receives the action. Okay? Now, how about will is guapo, handsome. All right? Now, is this an action?
Yes.
Is Will doing something?
No.
He's not, right? So in the first sentence, this is an action.
Description of will.
In the second one, it is a description, or we might call it a state that Will is in. So we see the verb is.
And
Will
it-
is beautiful. So subject, in this case, the subject is still will. The verb is, and then this is, it's called a complement, a complement.
Adjective.
Adjectival complement, but we won't get into that detail. The key here I want to focus us on is the subject and the verb. And in these two sentences, we see that a verb can function as an action, telling us what the subject's doing, or a verb can also function as a state that the subject is in. Or we could say the tree is brown, or that's a state. Or we could say the clouds thunder. That's an action. All right. So with verbs, they are the most important word within a sentence because they tell us what's happening. They describe an action or a situation or a condition that's taking place. And so when we're doing textual observations, what we want to do is break down the verbs within that we see within the text. All right. And there are three aspects or characteristics of the verb that we want to identify. Now, we talked about this in class, but I know it was some time ago. So I want to review this quickly because this is what we want to look at. When we think of a verb, an English verb, what are the three characteristics of that verb? Can anyone remember?
Linking verb.
No, it's not the linking verb. This is something a little different. There are three ways to
Active or
describe a verb.
Passive.
I'll give you a hint. One of them is tense. Okay? Verbs have a tense.
Past tense, present tense.
Past, present,
future.
or future. All right?
How about something about mood?
Mood, very good. Excellent. Who can tell me what are some of the different moods of a verb?
Passive.
Indicative mood.
Indicative, which is makes a statement. That's a statement. All right. What's another?
Imperative.
Very good. Imperative, and that is a
Command.
command. All right.
Infinitive. Subjunctive.
Subjunctive. Oh, now we're getting fancy here. Okay. Subjunctive tells us
What's the subjunctive?
a possibility
Possibility.
or conditional.
Infinitive.
Okay, infinitive is a different kind of verb. We're not going to get into those, but there's another type, interrogative. That is asking a question. Okay. There's one other
Exclamatory.
type but we won't talk about. These are the most common. All right, and then there's voice. Verbs have a voice.
Passive.
They're very good. Passive or active. And again, when we're talking about active, active means the subject is doing the action. We'll pick on Will again. Will ran to his car. Okay? In this case, it's active because the subject is doing the action. Okay? Now, passive is that the action is being done to the subject. Will was hit by his car. Okay? So this is passive because it's describing the action to happen to the subject of the sentence. You see that?
Okay.
So passive means the subject is passive, meaning he's receiving the action. It's being done to him. But in an active sentence, the subject is doing the action. Okay? So, for example, I hit the ball. Is that passive or active?
Active.
Active.
Good.
Active voice.
The subject, I,
Doing the action.
is doing the action. Hit. Now, the ball was hit. Is that active or passive?
Passive voice.
Active.
Passive. Because in this sentence, the subject is the ball, but the subject is having the action done to him, to it in this case. All right? So what we want to do is we examine the verbs within our text and identify these three parts: the tense, the mood, and the voice. Okay? So let's do that. Let's see. Do I want to do that first, or yeah? Let's go ahead and do that. All right. So let's go back up to our passage, and let's see. Probably what would work better. Give me a moment. I'm gonna access our passage again here. Sorry. One moment, please. Okay, let me put it back here. I'm just gonna cut and paste the text in here. Right here. All right, so let's go back then to verse 1. And what we're gonna do is identify the verbs and then describe the tense, the mood, and the voice. All right, so I'm gonna have you guys help. German, we're gonna start with you, brother. Identify the verb and then tell me is it its tense, its mood, and its voice. In verse 1.
The Lord reigns, let
Okay.
the people tremble.
So tell me the verb.
Reigns.
Reigns. Okay,
Reigns.
what's the tense? Is it past, present, or future?
Present tense. And then the mode, then the voice is active.
The voice is active, good, because the subject is doing the action. And what about the mood? Is it indicative, imperative, interrogative?
Indicative.
Very good. It's a statement. The Lord reigns. Okay, what's the next verb, German, in verse 1?
He is enthroned above the cherubim, let the earth shake. Okay,
Okay.
the present tense, past tense, enthroned.
Okay, which?
The
Tell me the verb.
The
Tell
verb
me the
is
verb.
enthroned. The verb is enthroned.
Is, okay. And that's what tense?
Past tense, because the word enthroned is past tense.
Well, it's enthroned is not the verb.
Present tense.
It's
present
present.
tense. Because
He-
yeah.
He is enthroned, okay?
Yeah.
All right. What's the voice?
Active voice.
Okay, good. And what's the mood?
Still indicative.
Okay, good. Any other verbs in verse 1?
Shake,
Shake,
Tremble.
good.
tremble.
Shake and tremble. All right, let's do shake. What's the, can you give me the tense, mood, and the voice, please?
Present tense, shake.
Mhm.
The voice is active.
Good.
The mood is indicative.
Okay. Think about this for a minute. Let's shake.
It's
It's-
imperative.
It's a command, actually.
Imperative, yeah.
But it's a different kind because it's this word let. Let shake. But you could say it this way. Let him be free. That means free him. It's a command, but it's said in a slightly different way. Okay, how about tremble?
Let the people remove.
Yeah,
Okay.
the same.
It's the
I
same
think
as
it is-
shake, right? Present
Yeah.
active imperative. All right. Okay, good. Let's move to verse 2. William, we're going to have you do verse 2. Identify the verb and then tell me the voice, mood, and tense.
First verb is. Is.
Okay.
Present, active, and indicative.
Very good. Next verb.
Again, is on the second line. Same.
Same
Present,
thing.
active. That's it.
Oh, you had it easy. That was too easy. So you have to do verse 3 also.
Okay. Verb is praise. It's present, active, and imperative.
Very good. Again, notice let praise. All right. Are there any other verbs?
I don't think so.
Just is, right?
Yeah, just is, which is the same as above.
Yep.
Only is he. Present, active, and indicative.
All right, good. All right, Brother Salito. We're going to give you verse 4. Identify the verb and then tell us and you need to unmute yourself. You're on mute, Salito. Can you unmute? There you go.
Okay. Okay.
I can hear you. Good.
The strength of the king loves justice. You have established equity. You have executed justice and righteousness.
Okay, so what verbs do you see?
Strength.
Okay, is that a verb?
Yeah.
Because he's saying the strength. So it has
The strength.
it's that's a thing. So it's a noun. All right?
Yeah.
Strength is a noun. It's the subject, but what's the action word here? What's the verb here?
Loves.
Love.
Loves. Okay. Can you tell me what the mood and the tense and the voice are for that? Is it past, present, or future?
Present.
Okay, good. And is it active or passive? Is the subject, the strength, doing the action or
Active.
receiving it?
Active.
Very good. And then what mood is it? Indicative, interrogative, imperative?
Imperative.
Now, is it telling us a command? Is it saying love justice, or is it describing, making a statement?
Love justice.
Yeah, is that a command or
Yeah.
a statement?
It's also command.
Okay, a command would be worded like this. This would be a command. Love justice.
Indicative.
O king, love justice. That would be a command. But here he's saying the king loves justice. So that's making a statement.
Indicative.
Okay, so we call that indicative. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Indicative.
All right. And any other verbs that you see here?
Established.
Yeah, have established.
Have.
Established.
And what's the past, present, or future?
Past.
Past.
Yeah, it's past tense.
Past perfect.
Yeah, we won't get that detailed. But it's a past tense. It's something done in the past. Is it active or passive? Is the subject you
Passive.
doing the action?
Active boy, active.
It's active. And then is it making a statement? Is it asking a question? Is it making a command?
Indicative.
Yeah, it's making a statement, right? Indicative. All right. And then we have another verb, executed, which is exactly the same. Past, active, indicative. Okay? All right, that verse was a little more challenging. All right, Brother Eric, I'm going to ask you to do verse 5.
Exalt the Lord our God and worship at his footstool. Holy is he.
So what verbs do you see?
Exalt,
All right. Is that past, present, or future?
present,
Is it active or passive?
Ambis ate, ambin ate.
oh, who's that?
I don't know. Is it active or passive?
Active, active.
Okay, good. It's active. And is it what's the mood? Is it a question? Is it making a statement, a command? Is it a condition?
Making a command.
It's a command, so it's imperative.
Yes.
All right. What's any other verbs?
Worship.
All right. Past, present, future.
Yeah, present.
Passive or active?
Active, imperative.
All right. Exactly. It's the same as the word exalt. And then finally, we have the word is. And tell me what that one is. Past, present, or future?
Present.
Active. And what's the mood? Is it making a statement, command, question? Indicative. Good. All right. Okay. MacDon, we'll have you do verse 6. What's the first verb you see?
Moses and Aaron were among his priests, and Samuel was among those who called on his name. They called upon the Lord, and he answered them. Verb is where?
All right. Past, present, or future?
Past.
Past. Were among his priests. Active or passive?
I think passive.
Active.
It seems like it, but it's active. It's describing Moses and Aaron. So it'd be like is or was. If it had said were made his priests, that would be passive. But it just says they were his priests. So that is an active form. What's the mood? Indicative, imperative, interrogative?
Statement.
The statement. So it's indicative, right? All right. The next verb.
Was. Past.
Good.
Active.
Yep.
Indicative.
All right. Excellent. Next verb.
Called.
Called. Actually, it's used twice, isn't it, here? And what's the tense? Past.
And indicative.
All right. You seeing a pattern here? And then one more verb.
Called and answered.
Answered. Okay. And that is, yep, same. Okay. All right. Let's do verse 7. Ramel, you're up.
The verb is spoke.
Right? Can you identify the characteristics? Past? Okay. Passive or active? Is the subject he doing the action?
Yes, active.
So it's active. What's the mood?
Indicative.
And
Is he making a statement?
uh,
Yeah, so it's indicative. Good. All right, the next verb.
it, Past. Active. Indicative.
Okay. And then finally, one more verb.
And step 2. That. Gave.
Gave, there you go.
Past. The same.
Yep, it's the same. Active, indicative. All right, good. 2 more verses. Narelle, Brother Narelle, are you there? You're up.
Yes, Professor.
Okay.
Verse 8, verb is answered.
Okay, good.
Okay, past.
Is the subject
Indicative.
doing the action? Okay, it's indicative. Is it passive or active?
Passive.
Okay, good. And another verb here?
Giving.
Now that's describing God. So that's actually not
yes.
an adjective here.
Where?
Where is the verb?
Where? Okay.
Past, present, or future?
Past.
Okay, active and what's the mood?
And indicative.
All right. You guys noticing a pattern here? A lot of indicative, active, indicative verbs. Finally, Charlie, is your sound all right? Can you, no? All right, Jesse, we'll have you do the last verse. Verse 9.
The verb is exalt,
Okay.
present, active, imperative.
Very good.
And
Next
second verb is worship, present, active. I think still imperative.
Correct. Calling, saying you worship. All right. And any more verbs?
Yeah. Is present, active, indicative.
All right. Okay. So we've done all the verbs here in the passage. And what we want to do is just, before we go on to the next textual observation, is just, do we notice any pattern in these verbs? So as we go back and look at verses 1 to 5, for example, one thing we can notice is, notice the tense of the verbs, most of the verbs in verses 1 to 5 here. We'll go back to verse 1. All the verbs in verse 1 are present, verse 2 present, verse 3 are present tense, verse 4, one of the 3 is present, verse 5 present. So most of the verbs in the first 5 verses are present tense. All right? And then in verses 5 or 6, 7, and 8, the verbs are mostly past tense. All right? So we might just take note of that. Verbs in verses 1 to 5 are mostly present tense, but past tense in verses 6 to 8. All right? And then again, notice the pattern, the early part of the stanza. So if we go back to the first stanza, we see indicative, indicative, imperatives, indicative, indicative, and then an imperative. The second stanza, indicative, 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 and then imperatives. Third stanza, indicatives, 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 then imperative. All right? So there's a pattern that early in the stanza, mostly indicative. The last verse is imperative. All right? And then all the verbs are active in the entire poem. Okay? So that's just something to pay attention to. How are the verbs behaving? All right, you look for patterns when you do this, all right? Okay, any questions at this point? I know grammar's painful, but this is part of the process and gaining a better understanding of how the author is using grammar to communicate. All right, so one thing we look for when we do the textual observations is the verbs. What are the verbs doing? All right, the second thing we want to look for are the pronouns. What kind of pronouns do we see within the psalm? So in the passage. So for pronouns, just a quick reminder, what are pronouns?
It's a word used in place of noun.
Okay, good. A word used in place of a noun. And we would say personal noun, correct?
Yes.
That refers to the personal noun. Okay? So instead of saying Pastor Rex is
Morning.
good morning, by the way. What would be a pronoun for Pastor Rex?
He.
He or him, right? Now, if I would say Pastor Rex and Kent,
Them.
then we would say
they
or them
Them.
or themselves, depending on how we're using in the sentence, okay? So now if we were talking about, if I was saying I and Pastor Jesse, I would say we. Okay, and then I actually is a pronoun as well, isn't it? Referring to Pastor Tim. All right, so those are pronouns. And what's helpful sometimes is to take note, especially in poetry, what kind of pronouns are being used? And is there a shift or a change in the pronouns? Is there a pronoun that's more typically used than others? So we're going to see a very distinct and clear pattern in this psalm regarding the pronouns. So let me copy the psalm again here for a moment. Copy. And we'll go through the pronouns quickly. Oh, nuts.
Pastor Tim, there's a
Yes.
question here.
Yes.
Pastor Kenneth, have established past tense?
This past tense.
I'm sorry, ask the question again.
Is have established is past tense? Because
have established is past tense. In verse, yeah, here. Yeah, it's an action that has taken place in the past. If it had said,
it's not had established is past. Had.
You could say had as well. Had or have both function the same way.
Okay.
Present tense would have been this. You establish equity. Okay. Future would be you will establish equity. Okay. Now, there are different ways to say past. You established would be one form of a past tense. You have established. You had established. All right. These are all different forms, and I'm not going to get into technically there's a perfect and a pluperfect, but we're not going to go there.
Okay.
These are all past actions. All right. So that the ending of this verb is the helpful indicator that tells us it's a past action. Okay. Trying to keep it simple here. All right. Does that answer your question?
Okay.
Okay.
For clarification, Pastor Ted.
Yes, sir.
Have is used for a pronoun like you, I, we, they, have is used for that pronoun, and has is for he, she, and it.
Singular.
Yeah, if it were using a singular,
form.
he has
Yeah.
established.
Mhm.
Correct.
So yeah, so that's the difference there.
Yeah. Yeah, we would say I or you have established,
Mm-hmm.
but then we would say he or she has.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
we would say I, you, or they have,
Yeah.
but it's he or she. So generally it's a singular versus plural, but not always, because I is singular, but we would, English is funny. So I have established is what you would say, not I has established, but he or she has established. All right. So I apologize for my language. It causes problems, but the simple way to look at it would just be to notice the ed ending, and that indicates it's a past action. All right. Past action. All right. Now, let me just ask this question since we're here. All right. You have established.
Mommy, mommy.
Okay. That verb is past active indicative. Now, what if it had said you were established? That's past. Is it active or passive?
Passive.
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 It's passive because the action is being done to the subject. You were established. In this case, you have established. The subject is doing the action. You established. But in the second statement, you were established. The action of being established was done to the subject, you. Okay?
Yes.
You see the difference?
Yes.
All right. Now this matters because, for example, well-known verses, take Ephesians 5:18. I use this example in class where it says, be filled by the Spirit.
For the Spirit.
It says, do not be drunk with wine. Here, I'll put the whole verse in. Do not be drunk with wine, but be filled by or with the Spirit. All right? Now this word, be filled, this verb, let's break it down for a minute. Is it past, present, or future?
Past.
Be filled.
Present. Present.
Present. The verb
present.
be is present. Now, if it had said were filled, that's past. Okay? But it says be filled.
Indicates present tense.
Word indicative.
Yes, it's indicative. It's making a statement. It's not a command or a question. Now, what about the voice? Or no, sorry, it's not indicative.
Yeah.
Passive.
Imperative.
It's imperative and it's
imperative
passive.
Be filled.
Passive voice.
Because it's saying you be filled. It's a command. But it's passive. Because, again, the implied subject here is you, correct? When you have a command, the subject implied is you. You be filled. So this is an interesting thing to consider. It's passive because it says be filled. So the action is being done to the subject. The subject is not doing the filling. In fact, we learn here the one doing the filling is the Spirit, correct? You be filled by the Spirit. So this is an interesting command. It's present tense, which means it's current and ongoing. So this command is to be carried out on an ongoing basis right now. Present tense. All right? That's what the tense tells us. And then the imperative tells us that it's a command. We must do this.
Be filled.
Okay.
But it's passive, meaning actually it is being done to the
Outside.
subject. There is another agent doing the action. And who is that agent? In this case, he is the Spirit. So here's an interesting command. We're being commanded to have an action done to us. Does that sound a little strange?
Yeah.
How do you
so
command somebody to have something done to them?
Yes.
So
So it can.
there's a lot of doctrine that actually is embedded in this verb.
Yes, especially
Okay.
Pastor Tim, the contrasting of drinking wine to influence and even the spirit. It means that the spirit, it filled us, or the same as the concept of principle of drinking, that you need to feel.
Yeah, it's the idea of, what are you going to be controlled by? Don't be controlled
So-
by wine, be controlled by the Spirit. But
Pastor Ted,
yes,
That's
sir.
only the idea.
can we consider the verb drunk here, if they are the same also with being filled?
Well, he's
Do not
saying,
be drunk with
do
wine.
not be
Is
drunk.
Is it also passive?
Yes.
Are we not the one who drinks? The wine.
Yeah, see, that's
Something
what's
like that.
interesting about this command.
Yes,
It's
yes.
written in the passive voice, but there is something that we can do to put ourselves in the position to be acted upon. Okay?
Because the action is commanded by to us, not to the wine. And being and the command that is to be filled is pointing to us, not to the Spirit.
Well,
This is
but we
something
don't do the filling.
Yeah, but
So,
you need
Pastor
to allow
Tim,
the Spirit to
It is being
to
done
fill you.
to us.
Yeah, but you need to allow the Spirit for you to
so
be filled.
Pastor Tim,
Yeah.
the question is, what is our role in
Yeah.
particular command?
Exactly. That is exactly. Because if Paul had said this, you are filled by the Spirit. All right? That's active, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
active.
this
And
one would be, in this case, we're talking about present, active, indicative. It's making a statement. Okay? Or he could have said, you fill the Spirit, which this would be wrong theologically, but I'm just, for the sake of grammar, this would be present, active, imperative. But he says instead, you be filled by the Spirit. This is present, imperative, but it's passive. So it does mean it's a command to us. You, do this. What do I do? Be filled by the Spirit. Well, how do I do that? Well, it's telling us that because it's a command, it's telling us there is something we do that allows the Spirit to then fill and do his work in us. So we are commanded to put ourselves in a position to be under the Spirit's control. All right? But it's passive. We aren't the ones that do the filling. So that's a very interesting construction. But the grammar here is key to understand, because the grammar is guiding us. Present tense, meaning do this all the time, current and ongoing. Imperative, meaning there's a command here that we're to follow. But the passive tells us that it is something someone else is doing. We must put ourselves in a position to allow someone else to do the action. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Would that be that action also, Pastor Ted, being filled?
Yeah, we don't do that action though.
Is the willingness not an action to do that?
Yeah, there is an action. There's an action on our part, but it's not the filling. But we have to put ourselves in a position to be filled.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Pastor, that's Tim. Yeah, but the next imperative is about singing hymns.
Well, that's a participle. So that's telling us the result of being filled.
Well,
Okay,
so
remember
that whose part that one is singing hymns is our part or the Spirit?
yeah, we're doing the rest of the verse is be filled by the Spirit. What is it? Singing.
Singing.
Psalms and hymns, spiritual songs. Was it giving, Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving, making melodies.
With Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
Making melody, something like that. But and then being subject. So these verbs here are singing, making melody. Those are participles, meaning they will modify the main verb, which is be filled. Okay, so if we were diagramming, we'd do this. Okay, so they are describing the result or the outcome of being filled. So, you know, I didn't intend to have a long discussion on this, but I just wanted to show you an example of why paying attention to these three parts of the verb is very important. Because we don't want to get this wrong. We don't want to say you fill, or you're the one doing the filling. That's not correct. The Spirit is the one doing the filling, but there is something we must do because we're commanded to put ourselves in a position to be filled. All right? It'd be like me saying, Brother William, be driven to the airport. Okay? Now, when I say that, so let me type this out. Will be driven to the airport. Who's doing the driving?
The driver.
The driver is. So this verb is present passive, isn't it?
Yes.
But it's an imperative. I'm giving Will a command. I'm telling him, be driven to the airport. So there is something that Will must do to put himself in a position to be driven, right? He needs to call an Uber or a Lyft.
Buy a car.
Or buy a car or hop on a bus or a van. Or he has to do something though, right? But the action of being driven to the airport is done by someone else. But if Will just sat at home and did nothing, he would not be fulfilling the command, would he? He would not be putting himself in the position to be driven to the airport. All right? So in the same way, be filled by the Spirit means there is something we must do in order to put ourselves in a position for the Spirit to do the filling. So that's the command is the part that we must do. And what is it we must do? Well, that's what you have to figure out from the context. All right? We won't go into that now. I just wanted to point out an example where understanding these three things are, these three aspects of the verb are very important. Yeah, Brother Rex?
Can we paraphrase the phrase "be filled by the Spirit" by making it like you allow yourself to be filled by the Spirit?
Yeah, I mean that's the general idea.
Okay.
I would say you put yourself in a position to be filled by the Spirit.
Something like that.
Okay, and we would have to figure out, you know, what does that mean? How do you put yourself in a position? That's where we'd have to talk about the doctrine of being filled and what we can do to prevent that from happening and what we can do to allow it to happen. All right? That's a whole nother discussion. But I'm just trying to show you the importance of understanding these three parts of the verb, because it will determine if we accurately interpret a particular passage. Okay? All right. Let's get back to our pronouns here. Okay. Let's notice. We'll just again go with each verse and just want you to identify the pronouns here. Where are we? Kent, I'll have you do that. Verse 1.
Yes.
What pronouns do you see?
He.
He. Okay. I think that's it. Go ahead and do verse 2, Kent.
He.
He.
Easy, right? All right. Let's see. Vikmar, are you there?
Yes.
Go ahead and do the pronouns for verse 3 and verse 4.
Verse
Identify.
3 is your and he. And verse 4 is you. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
You.
Now, I forgot to mention, we need to identify, let me go back to verse 1. He is in reference to, what's the pronoun referring to? Who is it referring to?
God.
Yeah, the Lord.
The Lord.
Specifically here, Yahweh, right? His personal name. Notice the capitalization.
Yes.
Okay. Now, verse 2, he is in reference to
Lord.
Yahweh.
Lord.
Yahweh. Verse 3, who is your reference to?
Reference to Yahweh.
Still Yahweh, right? From verse 2. He is referring to
Yahweh.
all right.
Yahweh.
Verse
There's also
4.
one. There's
Still
also
Yahweh.
still number 3, them.
Oh, did we miss one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Them.
thank you. Good catch. Them, who's that refer to?
Oh yeah, them.
People, the people.
People.
Yeah, the peoples.
Israel.
In this case, the peoples, because you always go back and find the nearest reference. And in this case, the peoples is the one just mentioned. Okay?
Yes.
All right, so good. So there's one reference to the peoples here. The others so far are to Yahweh. Verse 4, we're back to Yahweh. Okay, let's do verses 5 and 6.
Our.
Brother Jed, you there? All right, Ruel, let's go with you. Can you identify the pronouns in verse 5 and 6?
Verse 5, first is our, representing the people. His refers to the Lord, and he refers to the Lord as well.
Okay. His refers to Yahweh, our God, right? Because that's the nearest. And he. Is that what you said, Ruel? Yahweh?
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
all right.
And verse 6, his refers to Yahweh, our God, the Lord, and those.
Where?
Among.
No, among is not a pronoun. Those.
Where?
Those.
That's a verb. Where is verb?
Yeah, where's verb? Those who call on his name. Those
refers
and
to
who?
Moses and Aaron and
Moses,
Samuel.
Aaron, Samuel.
And his refers to the Lord, Yahweh, God. And there's still they, refers to Aaron, Moses.
Okay, good. All right, so we have his.
Pastor Tim, how about among? Is it independent pronouns?
No, among's not a pronoun. Not a pronoun. It's not referring to it's a preposition. All right, they.
What it would say next, among them.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
Among them, among those.
Among those, yeah. So those is the pronoun.
Mm-hmm.
Yahweh, our God, and then you said them, right, at the end? Is Moses, again, Moses, Aaron, I can't spell, and Samuel. Is that it? Did I get him?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Jed, I think you said you're back now, right? Can you do verse 7 for us, the pronouns?
Yes, Pastor Tim. Sorry.
No problem.
He.
And that's referring to?
God.
Yep, Yahweh, specifically in this.
Yeah, Yahweh.
Okay, what's?
They.
Oh, we missed one. He spoke to them. Who is the them?
Moses, Aaron, Samuel.
Yeah, that they seem to be the nearest.
Yeah.
Okay, because that was the last time. Notice in verse 6, the them. same guys. Okay. All right. Then we have they. Who is the they in this case then?
Same.
The same?
Moses,
Before?
Aaron.
Same,
When
yeah.
Yeah.
Still the same.
Okay, because there's nobody else that's been introduced here. All right, then we have, they kept his. Okay, who's that referring to?
Yahweh.
Yeah.
Yahweh.
Yahweh,
Okay,
the,
next pronoun.
Yeah.
our God.
He. And
He.
such that he.
Okay, who's that referring
Yahweh.
to? Yahweh, our
Yahweh.
God again. And are there any more?
Them.
Them.
Them. Who's that referring to?
Moses, Aaron.
Moses, same people. Moses, Aaron, and Samuel.
Yes, because again, nobody else has been introduced yet. All right. Okay, good. Emmanuel, are you there? Brother? All right, Emmanuel, can you do verse 8 for us? Can you do verse 8?
Them.
Okay, them. Who's that referring to?
O Lord our God, you answered them.
Who is the them?
Moses?
Seems to still be
Moses.
these three, right?
Yes.
Moses, Aaron, Samuel.
All right, what's the next pronoun?
You
How
were
about
The R and the U.
our?
Yeah, we
How about
forgot the first
our
hour here, right? Our God.
personal pronoun?
Again, just like we identified before here, the recipients of the psalm. Okay. You. Is that the next one?
you.
Okay, who's that referring to?
Yahweh.
Yahweh.
Yahweh our God, right?
Yahweh our God.
To
Them.
Them.
All right. Now here we're starting to we should ask ourselves a question. Is it still Moses, Aaron, and Samuel here? Or is the author referring to more general them? That would be the exegetical question we would have to answer. Is this just Moses, Aaron, Samuel, or is he referring to others as well? Okay? Because he says, you're forgiving God to them and an avenger of their evil deeds. Is he only speaking of, it's the same question, just Moses, Aaron, and Samuel, or?
It could be the whole Israelites. I think.
Yeah, but
Evil persons.
Okay, and that's something we don't have to we can't necessarily answer right now, but we should at least be thinking about that question. That's why looking at the pronouns can be helpful, because then you begin to ask yourselves these questions. Who is he talking about here? Is he talking just about Moses, Aaron, and Samuel? That seems to be it based on the grammar, because again, a pronoun, you just look to what's the nearest reference. And in this poem, it's
Moses, Aaron, and
Moses,
Samuel.
Aaron, and Samuel. But theologically, we have to think about, is he also referring to the people of Israel?
Israel.
So this is where I would just insert this as a question, all right, that we want to make sure we answer as we go further into this psalm. Okay? All right, I think that covers the pronouns there. And then we have verse 9, just like verse 5, we have our, we have his, all right,
Our.
which is Yahweh. And then our seems to be the recipients again of the psalm here. All right. The psalmist is including, I should actually indicate the psalmist and the recipients of the psalm, right? Because he's saying our. Okay. All right. Now notice something as we look through this psalm, there's really only there's a couple of main reference here. He, whenever it's he, you, and your,
Personal
or
pronoun.
his. Oops.
Yahweh.
This is Yahweh. And if we look at it, I think he, I counted, is used 7 times. His is used 4 times. And then you and your is used 5 times. That's quite a few times in 9 verses. All right. And then we have them and they, which again seems to be Moses, Aaron, Samuel. But again, we had that question. And then our is referred to a few times, the psalmist and the recipients. Okay? But here's something to notice. The dominant pronoun used is in reference to Yahweh. This psalm is about Yahweh. That's the focus. Okay? And we see that from examining the pronouns. Any questions or comments on this? Okay, again, I know this is a detailed study. This is maybe not as exciting as, you know, some other parts of our study, but we're trying to look at all the details, because it is as we study those details that we begin to get better insight into what's going on in the text, or it makes us ask questions that we might not have asked before. For example, when we asked about the they, them, and the their in verse 8, that's an important question to consider. Who is he talking about here? All right. We might not have asked that specifically if we didn't go through this exercise, because we might have just assumed that them, oh, that just refers to everybody. But in the psalm, it appears to refer specifically to Moses, Aaron, and Samuel. All right. So we have to answer that question. And so this textual observation process exposes some of these questions. Okay? All right. Let's go to one other thing we want to pay careful attention to in the textual observation are the conjunctions. And remember, these are connector words, we call them. But, or and, therefore, since, so that, okay? So we want to just take a moment and go through and examine that within this poem. All right, so let me go back, copy this poem one more time. All right. All right. Now let's just highlight. Do we see any conjunctions in verse 1?
Yes. How about above?
Above is a preposition. Okay.
No.
There's
no.
none here.
No conjunction.
None.
But let's see. Verse 2, we have and.
And.
Okay. And again, above is a preposition. Verse 3.
And.
And.
All right. Verse 4.
And.
And.
Verse 5.
And.
Verse 6. Yep.
And.
Okay, we're just seeing one kind, aren't we here? Verse 7. And.
Still and.
Verse 8, you answered your and. Verse 9, and. Okay. Yeah.
Should we not consider and yet in verse 8?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, but notice here, yet is
Italic.
italicized. What did we say about italics?
Addition.
Added.
Interpretive.
Yeah. Meaning that in this case, the New American Standard added it. It is not in the original text. So they think it's implied. So, but yeah, if we're looking at English, we would have them together. Okay. All right. Now, there's one thing though. Okay, so we look through this and pretty much all the conjunctions are and, but remember our diagram. We identified several other conjunctions that were there, but were implied. Remember, these are all the highlighted ones. Do you see that?
The therefore.
Therefore.
And for.
Therefore. Therefore. None of these are in the text, but we understand as we studied the diagram that they're implied. They were not included, but they're implied to be there. Another therefore. For. Okay? So you want to take this into account, therefore, when you're considering the conjunctions, okay? So what I would do is this. For this step in the textual observations, I would summarize. So the summary is this. The primary conjunction used is and it's found in almost every verse but verse 1. However, the conjunctions therefore and for are implied in verses 3, 5, and 9 and just before the last line in verses 5 and 9. Okay? And for that, you can go back to our diagram. Okay?
Okay.
All right, good. Now, conditional clauses. That's one other thing we want to look for. Remember, a conditional clause is usually presented as an if and a then. All right? Did we see any of these kinds of clauses in our psalm? If and no. So in Psalm 99, there are none. All right? And then finally, purpose and result statements. Okay, that is a statement that is the result
Therefore. Yeah.
of another. Yeah, usually following a therefore. Okay? So if we look back at our diagram at the beginning here, we do have several, right? Verse 1, verse 3, verse 5, and verse 9. Okay? So we would just note that here. Okay? All right. Any comments or questions or thoughts? All right. Now, when we do epistles, the textual observations, there's like 15 of them that we look for. But with poetry, I just have you look for these 5. Basically, the verbs, the pronouns, the conjunctions, the conditional clauses, and the purpose or result statements, okay? Because many of the other observations we make as we do other steps in the process, okay? All right, so at this point, we should be very familiar with the grammar used within this poem, okay? Once we do that, We've just finished the textual observations, and the next step is word study, identifying and studying the significant words within the text. All right, so what I want to do is we'll cover the steps for doing this, and then next week we'll go through a few examples together of word studies within this particular psalm. Okay, all right, so again, the words to be studied, there's some important principles to remember when doing word studies. Okay, word studies are not the main part of the exegetical process. All right, they're a small part actually. All right, because all the steps we've done, again, look at all that we've done to this point. We've actually done quite a bit. Okay, we don't do word studies until much later in the process, because what does anyone know why we would do that? Why don't we do the word study at the very beginning? Can anyone tell me?
So that we will know what words are significant and relevant.
Yeah, we don't do the
Significant
words, or we do the word study later so that we would know what the significant words are. How do you know what the significant words are if you're not familiar with the poem?
Observation.
Okay. What's another reason we might wait to do the word study? Any other ideas?
2 times.
What's that? Say again, Jesse.
See the emphasis of the author.
Yeah, we wait so that we can get an idea of what the author is emphasizing. Okay. Also, too, remember, words are defined primarily by their context.
Yeah.
All right.
Context.
This is a key understanding. So what we're doing is we're studying all these steps first so that we can understand the context. Because if we just start with looking up a word, you'll look up a word and you'll find, 4 or 5 possibilities. How do you know which one it is if you don't know the context? So we first need to understand the context of the poem. We need to do all of this, the poetic analysis, the structural diagram, the textual observations. These all help us understand the context. And then when we look up a particular word, we'll know almost what it means before we even look up the definition, because we know the context. Okay? So when we're talking about word studies, there's some key principles to remember. One of them is words are to be studied from their original language, right? We're not looking up the English word or the Cebuano word. Okay? We can do that later, but the first and primary step is we want to study the word in their original language. So if we're studying the Psalms, what language are we talking about? What language were the Psalms written in? Hebrew. Right? And then if we're studying New Testament,
Greek.
and then some portions of the Old Testament are in Aramaic.
Aramaic.
Ezra 4-6. Okay, so we need to look up, we need to identify the original word that is used, because the authors used words from his original language. He didn't use a translation. Okay, and then we need to remember that words display a range of meanings. So any word in any language will usually have more than one possible meaning, right? When a word is formed, again, words evolve over time. So when a word is formed, it can mean something, but as it is used over time, it can add more meanings. Okay? We see this all the time with language. As each generation comes, it uses the word in different ways sometimes. It'll add ideas to the word, or the word will. We were just talking the other day, in English, word marijuana has many different words to describe it. Pot, grass,
Mary Jane.
weed, Mary Jane, some people used to call it. Dope. There's a ton of words that refer to marijuana. Okay, I'm sorry to use that example, but that's one that came into my mind. I don't use that stuff, but we could take any word, right? Train. A train can refer to you know, a large vehicle.
Locomotive.
Yeah,
Locomotive.
a locomotive.
Wedding dress.
It can refer to a wedding dress. It can refer to
Training.
yeah, being taught.
An act of teaching.
Yeah, teaching. Okay. So there's several meanings that can be attached to words, some very different ones, or the word hot.
Trunk. Trunk.
Yay.
Spell that for me.
Trunck or K?
Oh, trunk. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the word trunk.
Yes.
Yeah, that can be an elephant's.
Tree.
Part
Elephant's
of a tree.
nose.
Part of the tree.
Luggage. Part of a tree. The storage in a
Compartment.
car.
Back of a car.
Yeah.
Compartment. Mat, kalibog.
So if you think about it, elephant's
Context.
nose and the part of a tree, those have nothing to do with each other. Right? They're
Yeah.
completely different. And yet it's the same word.
That's English.
That's English. That's the problem. But
That's your language.
every language has this, where there are words that have a variety of meanings, right? So we have to understand that.
From the context.
And this is what, yes, takes us to this idea of we need to understand context, all right? So words display distinctions of meaning. So just because a word has many possible meanings, we still can only identify the correct meaning by the context. Okay? That is what determines it. A dictionary, a dictionary or a lexicon, it's sometimes called, gives us the options for how a word is defined, but only the context tells us which option is correct. Okay? So that's, again, we're back to why did we do all that study first? The poetic analysis, the parallelism, the structural diagram, textual observations, the background, all that other stuff. Why did we do that first? Because the words that are used to identify a particular word, we need to understand all of that other stuff, because that is what gives us the context to know how a word is being used. Okay? Now, when it comes to a word study, we need to understand two aspects about it. One is there's the lexical analysis. Okay, that is the various possible meanings. You know, what does the dictionary say? Dictionary definitions. Okay, and then there's what we call the syntactical analysis. All right, that is the relation of the word to the other words around it.
Usage.
Context.
Is that the same? Usage?
Usage, yeah, how it's used. How it is used within the text. All right, so lexical analysis just tells us the word could mean this or this or this, right? Just like we did above here for trunk. The word could mean elephant's nose, piece of luggage, part of a tree, storage. So if you see somebody say, my bike ran into a trunk, which could it be? Could it be an elephant's nose? Could be,
Part
right?
of a tree.
Part of a tree, luggage,
Yes.
store. So far, we don't know for sure. My bike ran into a trunk while I was riding in the forest. Okay, now it
So
still
possibilities.
could be these four, but it's more likely now part of a tree. Whoops. Forest. And I scraped the bark off of it. Okay, now we know it's a tree. As we add more words,
Not a dog.
the context. No, this is not referring to a dog. All right. As we add more words, we understand the context, which then tells us the meaning of a particular word. Okay? This is really important, men, to understand, because I've seen a lot of abuses of word studies. Because a pastor will see a word in the text, and then he'll go to a lexicon or, to a Hebrew dictionary, and he'll see, 4 different meanings, and one of the meanings is like, whoa, that's a cool meaning. That'll really preach. Without necessarily studying the context and seeing, does the word really mean that here? Okay? The word can mean that, but does it mean that here in this text? All right? We have to be very careful. I see this as one of the more common errors that pastors make, is they won't study the context very well. They'll look up a word and they'll find maybe the exciting meaning of the, or more obscure meaning, because it'll just sound really interesting, but is that the actual meaning that the author was using? All right? So this is important that we understand this. Context is king. All right? In so many ways. So let's go to the process then for doing word studies. What is the process? Okay? And this is where we'll just go over this, and then we'll finish up. All right? So first, identify the significant words in your passage, the words that you want to do a word study on. How do we do that?
Yes, how do we do that?
Raffles.
What's that?
Raffles.
Raffle. Okay, yeah. Take some dice and roll them, or close your eyes and just point to the text.
Pintot.
How do we figure out what a significant word is? I mean, we could do a word study on every word, but that would take a long time.
The word, I think probably the word that is not very clear to you, the meaning.
Yeah. Okay, good. Look up words that aren't clear. Look up words that are confusing or unclear. What else?
Repetitive words.
Good. Words that are repeated, repetitive words. Or,
The words
so
that
for
affect-
example, in Psalm 19,
Capital.
say again?
That is capitalized.
Capitalized.
Words like Lord, for example.
Okay. Lord is an important word, but, do we know who that's referring to? I mean, I think it can be helpful, but that's going to be an extensive one to consider. All right. But that is something.
How about this?
Common.
How about this,
Common.
Pastor Tim? For example, the word Lord appeared twice, but they have different usage. 2 words in one sentence, but different usage.
Yeah, if like we saw in Psalm 8.
The Lord,
said
to my Lord.
Yeah.
In description, yeah, different description as well.
Yeah, and Psalm 8 says, "Oh Lord, our Lord? Two different words.
How about the certain words that are comparison?
Words that are
Comparison or similar.
similar words.
Synonymous.
Okay, similar, synonyms. Okay. I would say identify words that
affect the meaning of the book.
that are connected to the theme of the poem. So in this case, in Psalm 99, what words would those be?
Holy.
Holy. Maybe exalted
Salt.
and worship. Those are common.
Awesome.
Yeah, we have some other ones too. Great and awesome.
Tremble.
Okay. But definitely, I think these three, because those are repeated, they're key to the theme, and exalted and worship is a repeated command in the psalm. All right.
Yes.
Which takes me to another one, key verbs.
Key verbs.
You know, usually the commands, especially. Okay. Look for words that are translated differently. Like if we'll be comparing the different English versions. Okay, so we're going to want to look for those kinds of words. All right. Again, you can do a word study on any word you want in the poem. There's no rule that says you can't study certain words, but we want to be strategic in identifying particular words. So we want to identify the key verbs, repeat
Relevant.
words, words that are connected to the theme of the psalm. And then, yeah, words that you just don't make sense or you don't understand or they seem confusing. Okay, but in a typical psalm, you know, like in a psalm like Psalm 99 where there's 9 verses, I'll probably study 7 or 8 words. Okay, just to give you an idea. I'm not going to study 25 words, and I think just doing 1 or 2 words isn't enough. I'll usually identify, you know, maybe 1 word per verse on average or something like that. Okay, that's not a rule. You can do more words if you want or less if you want, but you need to do enough words that will help you understand the key words within that poem. Okay. Now, secondly, then you want to, after you identify the keywords, you want to find the lexical definition for the word. Now, how do we do that? Well,
Linear.
yeah, there's 3 websites that I would refer you to that you can do this. BibleHub.com, BlueLetterBible.org, and BibleStudyTools.com. All right? And in your notes, I will include in the handout that I send you guys maybe tomorrow, I'll put in the detailed steps, all right, on how to do that. So for example, let me just show you one example for, we'll do it for Bible Hub, just really quickly, just to show you what I'm talking about here. All right, so let's do this. Okay, can you all see my internet window here? I'm going to go to Bible Hub. Hopefully, my internet's working. Okay, can you guys see that I'm at BibleHub.com?
Yeah.
Everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
I like BibleHub.com the best myself. I think it's the easiest to use, but there are a couple others good. So what I'm going to do here is put in the Psalm and then Psalm 99. My internet's going slow here. All right, Psalm 99. All right, so I'm at Psalm 99, and I'm going to hit, oh, it's still, sorry, it's still pulling in. Okay, I'm going to hit interlinear. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
All right, I'm on interlinear. It's right in the middle here. So interlinear. And then I'm going to click for the chapter because I want all the verses. All right?
Right.
Okay, so now I've got interlinear, okay, which means the middle line is the actual Hebrew text. The word below in red is the literal definition of the word. And then above, here's the Strong's number. Okay? And I'm going to hit the Strong's number. And somehow I ended up.
Yes, sir.
I ended up in another passage here. How did that happen? All right, Psalm 99. All right, let's do Yahweh reigns. We'll do reigns here. Let me hit Strong's number.
Louis.
Okay, Malak. All right,
Malak.
that's the verb for to reign. And notice
Malak.
now I've got all this information. I've got definitions here. All right, I've got other verses where the word is used on the right. I've got the different ways that the word is translated. Okay, so there's all kinds of information here that you can identify for the word. Okay, we'll go over some more of that next time, but I just wanted you to get an idea
Yes.
for this. All right, so there's three websites that you can do this with: BibleHub.com, BlueLetterBible.org, or BibleStudyTools.com. Any of those can give you a lot of information, all right? So I would highly recommend them. Now, so what you do is go to one of those websites, and then you can go to the you can find the actual word, and then you can get the definitions for that word, all right? And then the next step is where did it go? The next step is then to indicate how the word is translated in the other English translations. So you're going to look up that particular word, and I would recommend the ESV, the New American Standard, the NIV, the New King James, and just see how is the word translated in each of those passages. And then the next thing you're going to do is identify how the word is used in other passages. Okay?
Okay.
How is this word reigns used in other Psalms? Okay, we want to look up those verses and see how it is used. Okay? And then finally, you take all of this. You take the lexical definitions, how the word's translated in other English translations, how the word is used in other passages, and summarize the meaning of the word in the context of the passage you are studying, and summarize it in your own words. Okay? We'll go through this next week. We'll pick a couple of words to do this with, but I just wanted to introduce you again to the process. And then ultimately, like I said, the key phrase here is in the context of the passage you're studying. All right? That's what I want to make sure you grasp here. is when we find some of these definitions and we see how the word's used in other passages, that will give us the different meanings of the word, but then we want to see, okay, but how is it used in my passage with the context in my passage, okay? All right. Any questions or thoughts, comments, cries of outrage, grief, despair? I know word studies are not the most exciting thing, but they are
Yes.
helpful and important. Okay. No questions? You've had enough for this morning? Time to eat lunch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Pastor.
All right. Well, hopefully that helps a little bit. We're coming to near the end of our process. We'll do word studies next week. Some examples from Psalm 99. Also consider how to consult resources. All right, so I'll show you some examples of that from my study of this psalm. And then collecting that information together to then identify the authors, what, why, and how. Okay? So we'll see next week. We'll see how far we can get. All right?
All
Right.
right.
All right.
Thank you, Pastor
Okay.
Tim.
Let
All
me,
right.
Thank you.
let me ask Brother German, can you close us in prayer?
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, oh God, we thank you for this moment that you enhance our learnings, oh God, the way we use your word in the pulpit. And we thank you for Pastor Tim, who facilitate us, oh God, in this teaching. And Lord, we commit our lives in this area, Lord, that we are just not learning the way our intellect